Hey, everybody. It's Wednesday night, time for another AAPMD webinar and a very special webinar. It's going to be tonight. Uh, we have so many interesting things, and it's a topic that's a little bit off the beaten path, but it's something we all need to hear about. So I've been told by Zaghi that I have to get through everything quick because he needs every minute of this time. And I see we have somebody listening in from Australia. It's going to be perfect for you. So I am going to share the moderating of this webinar with and Chad. He knows so much on so many different topics, and lately has done so much to help move our organization forward, which is really great. And who are the co-founders of the Breathe Institute, along with Dr. Zaghi. I'm not even going to read their whole bio, but they are fantastic people. They are a perfect complement for each other. They're going to moderate this webinar, and it's going to be wonderful. This is going to be a little bit different, and I think it's great. You know, we were going to bring you the update on the on airway research, and then we started thinking about, or Sarush started thinking about what's happening in the world. I'm not going to tell you everything. I'm going to let him tell you. But the AAPMD was founded with the belief that everybody who has something to say about airway, whatever they have to say, can have a seat and a voice at our table, say what they want to say, and have the opportunity to back it up and prove it or disprove it, and keep the conversation open. So I think that this webinar tonight will be right along those lines, where we're going to have a conversation that needs to be had because people aren't really talking about things that are important today. So I just want to share a little bit about where we are with the AAPMD, that we have, we're up to about 700 members now. And a large part is due to the efforts of Layli and Chad. We have 183 new members as of in this year. We have 123 webinars in our webinar library, and now we have, in the process of being developed, 8 sections of the AAPMD. We have research, and we have soon to be live our online university, and coming in September is going to be Generation A, which is another surprise you're going to have to stay tuned to find out more about. These are our 8 sections of the AAPMD. You can go to the website and find out more about them. And so this is interactive. We have a chat box where you can put your chats in. I can see everybody's already chatting away, and it's good. There's a lot of people. We have almost 150 people on already. That's fantastic. You have any questions? Ask your questions. We want this to be interactive. Nobody else will see your question. If you put it in the chat box, everybody will see it. So don't be shy.
What happened?
The other thing to tell you is we have our AAPMD library, as I mentioned before, has 123 webinars now. If you're an AAPMD member, they're all free. You can come and watch them at any time. If you're not a member, it's $35 per session. I can't see any reason not to become a member of the AAPMD. Last thing we want to talk about before we get to this discussion is our conference. Less than a month away. We have almost filled our room block, so that if you want to come and you want to have a room, you should register today, and we want to see you there. Where all of us that you see now are going to be there. Come and join us. On Sunday, we're going to have Sunday Fun Day, where Sarush is going to talk about the research. We're going to honor our AAPMD liaisons, 70 from all around the world. those liaisons who can be with us. We're going to introduce our section leaders, and we're going to have the revealing of Generation A. That one. And our latest announcement is we're now going to be able to stream the conference live to anybody who's not in the United States, because people are having trouble coming to the meeting. We now have the availability to stream it live to countries throughout the world. So if you're in another country, I know we have Australia, Canada, Great Britain, India, you can sign up and you get a $100 discount if you're a qualified registrant who's qualified. If you're a liaison, you get a discount. If you're a researcher with Breed Outlook, you get a discount. If you're an AAPMD member, you get a discount. If you're a TBI ambassador, you get a discount. So, and if you have any questions whether you qualify, just contact Patty at info@aapmd.org. So, Layli, it's your opportunity to introduce the star of our show tonight, Dr. Zaghi. Go ahead, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'll be quick. Just mute Doc so there's no echo. There we go. I'll be really quick and just want to turn it over to Dr. Zaghi, because I know he's been plugging away hard at bringing some much needed conversation and topics to all of you today. So a huge thank you from all of us here at the Breathe Institute to Dr. Zaghi. And we have some lovely panelists joining us today. And we'll be introducing them shortly. So Dr. Zaghi, I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll have you bring me back on towards the end, and Chad and I can let all of our lovely participants from around the world, the attendees, know how you can get involved in the conversation, how you can be a part of groundbreaking research, and especially for those of you who will be joining live in Atlanta for the Collaboration Cures Conference, how hopefully as a collective we can really help change the paradigm in healthcare and revolutionize the standards of care. So thank you, Dr. Zaghi. It's an honor to work alongside you. We'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of you friends for being here. It's quite an honor to be here all with you. I think we have over 150 people in the audience. Thank you so much for saying hi. I see so many familiar names, and it's really, really an honor to be here and talk to you guys about these topics. My name is Dr. Soroush Zaghi. I'm a graduate of Harvard Medical School, UCLA ENT residency, and Stanford Sleep Surgery Fellowship. I am now medical director of the Breathe Institute, where we bring patient care, but also research and education in terms of a multidisciplinary approach to treating pediatric and adult sleep and breathing disorders. And really the foundation of our institute is the same exact slide that was presented to me on the first day of my medical school at Harvard, in which they said that half of what you learn in medical school will be shown to be either dead wrong or out of date within 5 years of your graduation. So the most important thing is to learn how to learn on your own. And so today I will be using this amazing opportunity in talking to you guys about research to really teach you guys how to be critical readers, critical thinkers, and how can we learn on our own, especially when it comes to difficult topics like we will explore today. Before I start, I want to acknowledge my amazing clinical and research team that works so hard behind the scenes. I want to acknowledge Nicole Archimont-Basalt, who you guys will hear from, as well as Layli and Chad and Mia for helping me with this presentation, among many others. Okay. So the initial perspective was that I would share some research principles about airway, but I thought that I could go over the same principles, but make it much more heartfelt, much more memorable, if we talked about a concept and an issue that's really dear and near to all of our hearts, whether or not we would like to admit it. And this is the issue of mandates regarding mask wearing, mandates about vaccine safety, trust, and what we have to do in order to survive, but also move forward beyond this pandemic, okay? And so I'm not here to tell you to believe in science, okay? I'm here to describe what is science and what is clinical research. And I first of all want to thank you for even being here and giving me a space to have this discussion with you guys. My goals are simple. My goals are for everyone here to learn, grow, and deeply understand by simply allowing a space for conversation. By helping us all learn to differentiate between facts, opinions, and fallacies, encouraging each and every one of you listening here, encouraging you to respect your own beliefs, meanwhile honoring different views, and together thinking critically and with compassion. If you look on the CDC website, there's a lot of terrific, great research articles. But one of the problems in terms of the research that's coming out is that there is a general lack of trust in the research. And when individuals say, trust science, trust me, right? Is that really going to help make people convinced that they are deserving and worthy of our trust? Even more so when we're seeing protocols going out all over the country and all over the world directed at physicians. I got this emailed to me, okay? This was an email about mask exemptions. I have patients who have difficulty breathing through the nose. I have patients who hyperventilate. I have patients who cannot wear a mask comfortably. And some of my patients have asked me for exemptions in certain places. And so I, as well as every physician, received a note from the Medical Board of California saying that the medical board is informing us that physicians who grant a mask or other exemption, vaccine exemption, without conducting an appropriate exam and without finding a legitimate medical reason supporting such an exemption within the standard of care may be subjecting their license to disciplinary action. And the board encourages the public to file a complaint with the board if they feel a physician is granting these exemptions inappropriately. What they're saying is that I must act within, not beyond, the standard of care, or I could risk losing my license. All right? And so I just want to give a disclaimer that, first of all, I dutifully abide by all CDC, medical board, and local regulations, including guidelines for vaccination and mask wearing. And everything that I will say today would make the medical board, as well as all of you in the audience, proud. Okay? But I ask a question because questions, challenges, and curiosity are vital to the process of science. Science is the process of seeking answers to questions. Science is never settled. Without questions, there is no science. I'm just going to pause for a second because I think there's a little bit of connectivity issues. So I'm just going to pause for 1 second, okay? It looks like it's a little bit out of sync, a little bit slow, they're saying. Zaghi, video delayed, frozen. That's just, yeah. It's just the platform. Yeah, it's just the platform, okay? So I'm going to continue on if that's okay with you guys. You guys enjoying it so far? You guys like the topic? Okay? All right. Science depends on questions. Science is the process of asking questions, making observations, refining hypotheses. Science does not have all the answers. Science depends on being open to any and all possibilities. And often in science, the real answer is usually far, far, far from obvious, because history has shown us that today's truths may be tomorrow's fallacies. So let's just start and see in the group chat box. Do you guys know who the first president of the United States, President George Washington, how did he pass away? Do you guys have any guesses? Was it from old age, pneumonia, weakened immune system, bloodletting? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? All right. So it turns out that, as we will see, and when you're given options, it doesn't have to be that any one option is correct. Sometimes all of the options are correct. And just as in this slide, we don't really know, but it could be any one of these things. The death of George Washington is mysterious, but what we do know is that 2 days before his passing, he was riding around on his estate, and it was a cold, wet day. He had dinner in wet clothes. He was feeling very sick, and he could already hardly breathe or talk on his own. Then he asked his team to bleed him, and they bled him 4 more times over the next 8 hours, and he lost 40% of his blood loss. At that point, he gargled a mixture of molasses, vinegar, and butter. He inhaled a steamed vinegar, hot water. He ate dried beetles, and he also did an enema. Okay? By late afternoon, he was dying and asked for his will. This is an account that shows us that it ain't what you don't know that gets into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And if we look back to history and you look at things like smoking, there was scientific evidence promoting the effects of smoking. Promoting smoking during pregnancy, promoting it to make birth more gentle. All right? Because when you smoke, the kids don't grow as much. They get intrauterine growth restrictions, right? And the birth is more easy. They're born more gently. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine thinking back? All right? And giving kids 7-Up, all right? If your kids are cranky, right? Betty is cranky, you know? What does she need? She needs some artificially sweetened foods and beverages. That's what she needs. Sugar sweetens dispositions. And advertisements and actual surgeries to treat Alzheimer's, PTSD, panic disorders with brain surgery. Okay? These things are real. These things are in the history of medicine. All right? But without questions and without challenges to scientific research, we would still be practicing these many truths that are now obviously harmful fallacies. So with that context, all right, we're going to open a discussion, all right? And the purpose of this is not to convince you one way or the other. And I am striving to do my very best to be in the middle, to maintain my own honesty, ethics, and integrity above everything else, okay? And so with that, I'm going to ask a question, and we're going to do a poll, okay? We're going to do a poll, and the poll is anonymous. We won't know how you answered, okay? And let's start the poll, please, okay? Personal preference for the vaccine. I want you guys, this is here to prove a point, okay? And I want you guys to see the controversy, all right? These are your colleagues. These are your colleagues. These are your friends. This is your community. This is your network. And you have to see this statistic, okay? Because this statistic is a fact. Among the people in this audience, 60% choose to be vaccinated, 40% choose not to be vaccinated. Is that interesting? All right. Now let's go to the next poll. All right. And my appeal is that everyone has a right to their opinion. Okay. Everyone has a right to your opinion. All right. And we're here just to have a discussion. All right. And it's helpful for me as well in the context of this to see who we're speaking with. And it's just your opinion. There is no right or wrong answer here. These are all opinions. Every opinion is valid. Every opinion is true. Okay? All right. Fantastic. So you guys are seeing the results here. Is that right? Okay? So it's pretty split. 12% vaccines should be banned altogether. The harm exceeds the benefit. 19%, everyone should do it. 70% encouraged but not mandated. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little poll. All right. I hope you found it valuable. And please let me know in the comment section if you found it valuable or not to do that little exercise. And thank you for participating. Thank you so much for participating. Okay. And then considering the different perspectives. Okay. There's polarized. Okay. Like 15-20% of people think no one should get the vaccine. 15-20% people think everyone should get the vaccine, right? Some people are in the middle. So consider the two extremes and consider this quote. Those who were dancing were deemed insane by those who could not hear the music. Okay? What this is saying and what this is arguing for is that what we need now more than ever before is effective communication based on principles of science. And these principles of science have a format and a protocol. And science starts with asking the question, then going and doing your research, going into the literature, going to the CDC website, talking to your friends and families, coming up with a hypothesis, testing the hypothesis, analyzing the results, drawing conclusions, reporting the results, and then you know what? Asking another question. Okay? That's the scientific method. The scientific method does not end. Science continues on. And science must be done with honesty, with ethics, and with integrity. Because if you are missing ethics, honest, and integrity, you break the trust that we have with the public, the trust that we have with our patients. And one of the biggest problems is the distrust with medical care. Now imagine a patient, a layperson, and we have one here today who I was in Wisconsin, and there was a shuttle driver, and we were having this discussion, and he was very intrigued by our discussion, and he wanted to be with us here today. And we're going to bring him on to hear about his perspectives, because he shared with us that he doesn't trust the medical system. He doesn't trust the medical system. Now, if he doesn't trust the medical system, do you think he's going to trust it more when I force him to do something that is against his brain and his soul, against the teachings of his grandmother and his mother to him? All right, so I have you guys think about that. And the question we have to ask is, why do people mistrust the healthcare system? The healthcare system is amazing. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. Or is it? This is a clip that everybody has to see.
Dr. Susan Moore battled COVID-19 in December. She turned to Facebook to document her fight for fair medical treatment.
You have to show proof that you have something wrong with you in order for you to get the medicine. I put forward and I maintain if I was white, I wouldn't have to go through that. I was crushed. He made me feel like I was a drug addict, and he knew I was a physician.
Days after she was initially discharged, Dr. Moore died from coronavirus complications. She was just 52 years old. And while the Indiana University Health Hospital System denies mistreatment in her case, Dr. Moore's story has resonated with African Americans across the country.
She was adopted, and they still didn't want to give her the proper treatment. COVID killed
Black people in this country at 2 times the rate of white people.
The pandemic exposed America's long history of inequitable medical treatment for Black patients and its legacy of broken trust.
Hey, Dr. Davis, hi.
Dr. Samson Davis runs a COVID-19 testing site in Harlem. In his 20 years of providing healthcare in African American communities, he's witnessed patient after patient reluctant to seek the medical help they need or enroll in clinical trials, worried their care will be impacted by the color of their skin.
Our grandparents, our great-grandparents have passed along the mistrust of the healthcare system.
And as the nation rolls out the coronavirus vaccine, a study conducted by the NAACP and COVID Collaborative found just 14% of African Americans trust a vaccine will be safe, and only 18% trust it will be effective.
And I see the hesitation with the African Americans and Latino Americans taking the vaccination just because of historical factors.
Some of my family members say they didn't want to take it. Some say, no, I'm not going to take it.
A decision especially difficult for Ron Lax, the grandson of Henrietta Lax.
In 1951, she went to Johns Hopkins Hospital for cervical cancer.
Henrietta Lax, known as the mother of modern medicine, was portrayed by Oprah Winfrey in The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lax.
She didn't donate nothing. They took them and didn't ask.
Without her knowledge or consent, doctors collected a sample of Henrietta's cancer cells for experiments. The cells were replicated in a lab and used to develop breakthrough treatments and cures from polio to AIDS, leukemia, and even coronavirus. Her cells have been replicated and sold all over the world, benefiting countless pharmaceutical companies.
The family tried to find out more about it, and doors was really shut in our faces.
And medical experiments on African Americans started long before Henrietta Lax. There were the men of Tuskegee, Alabama. The year was 1932. The U.S. Public Health Service told 600 African American men, mostly rural farmers, they would be treated for bad blood. But that was a lie.
There were 600 African-American men, 399 of whom had syphilis, and they were unknowingly included as subjects in this longitudinal research study.
28 men in the study died from syphilis. 100 more passed away from related complications. The federal government continued the Tuskegee Experiment for 40 years. Dr. Peter Millett is Executive Vice President of Meharry, one of the nation's oldest and most prestigious historically Black medical schools.
If you want to look at how this came about, you've got to look at the history of African Americans in this country. You've got to go all the way back to slavery.
In 1851, Samuel A. Cartwright defined drapetomania as a form of mental illness that causes slaves to run away. And shortly after slavery was abolished, Dr. J. Marion Sims practiced surgeries on Black women without anesthesia to prove they had a higher threshold for pain.
That history cannot be ignored or dismissed.
National Urban League President Mark Marial is now co-chair of a new vaccine equity task force commissioned by Governor Andrew Cuomo to ensure racial disparities in coronavirus testing and treatment do not persist with vaccine distribution.
I understand the cynicism and the skepticism. It is not without cause. The Tuskegee Experiment is a terrible stain on the soul of this nation.
This has to be a wake-up call for an inequitable public health system.
Public health experts from New York State to Meharry Medical School believe the first step in bridging the vaccine trust gap is bringing distribution directly to diverse communities.
It's got to be available at community-based locations, schools, community centers, nonprofit facilities. Healthcare is a right. It is a God-given right.
Ayana Harry, Pix 11 News.
And so it's no surprise that there's a long history that underlies all of these strong sentiments and mistrust. 1947, you had Nazi war crimes. Okay, so you can expect the Nazis, they were terrible people. All right, I mean, they were terrible people. No one likes what happened. It was a crime against humanity. All right. But in the United States, not that long ago, 1932 to 1972. They were offered free medical care, right? So now you're offering free vaccines, free medical care. And they weren't told they had a disease. And they weren't offered the cure. There was a cure for the disease and they weren't given it. So they could see what happens if you don't get treated, right? And it wasn't stopped until 1973. And it wasn't stopped until it became publicized and it became a political embarrassment. That's just one example. Another example is the Thalidomide Tragedy. Have you guys heard of this? This was a medicine given to pregnant women to relieve nausea. All right? They said it would be good. It seemed fine. It doesn't seem toxic. People take it. Nothing bad happens. Okay? But they didn't do the studies. And so what happened is that hundreds of thousands of mothers took this medicine. A lot of them had miscarriages. A lot of them had stillbirths. And yet others were born with severe malformations, missing appendages. And it took almost 7 years to get it off the market. Okay? People would take it. I don't know about this medicine. I don't know. But it was still on the market, and the drug reps kept pushing it, kept pushing it, kept pushing it. Let's learn about this failed experiment as well.
In the fall of 1960, Frances Oldham Kelsey was one of the Food and Drug Administration's newest recruits. Before the year was out, she would begin a fight that would save thousands of lives, though no one knew it at the time. She earned her doctorate in pharmacology and accepted Chicago's invitation to stay as faculty, where she undertook pioneering research on drugs and fetal safety. In 1950, she earned an MD, her fourth and final degree. By the time she joined the FDA, Frances Kelsey was one of the most educated, experienced scientists around. Yet, as the newest member of the team, Kelsey was assigned what everyone thought would be an easy review, an application from the U.S. drug company Merrill to sell a drug called thalidomide. Thalidomide was a sedative developed in Germany that was already being widely used in dozens of countries to treat insomnia and workplace stress. Thalidomide's anti-nausea properties also made it a popular remedy for pregnant women with morning sickness. Reviewing Merrill's application, Kelsey found its data on thalidomide's absorption and toxicity inadequate. Today, the FDA classifies drugs based on their safety for a fetus. But in 1960, many experts believed that the placental barrier shielded a fetus from harm. Kelsey's earlier animal-based research demonstrated the opposite. Drugs could pass from mother to fetus through the placenta. Like other drug companies at this time, Merrill had not tested its drug on pregnant animals. Kelsey later said Merrill's evidence for thalidomide's safety seemed more like testimonials than the results of well-designed studies. Kelsey rejected Merrill's application and asked them to submit a second, backed by better evidence. Her FDA colleagues supported this decision. Merrill had expected a quick affirmative reply so it could launch thalidomide for the holiday season, when sedative sales soared. Instead of supplying Kelsey with the data she requested, they first tried to convince her to approve the drug over a series of calls and visits. When these failed to sway her, Merrill executives complained that stubborn and nitpicking Kelsey was the problem, not thalidomide. The FDA backed Kelsey, forcing Merrill to file another application, and another, and another. As Kelsey reviewed and rejected each new application, news of thalidomide's adverse side effects began to surface. Doctors reported cases of nerve damage in early 1961, and by fall, they'd unmasked a more horrible truth. Thalidomide, widely used by pregnant women, caused severe birth defects. Thousands of babies died in utero, and tens of thousands more were born with extra appendages, shorter limbs, or no limbs at all. In November 1961, thalidomide was pulled from the German market. Nonetheless, Merrill continued trying to get it approved in the US for several months before withdrawing their sixth and final application. While Kelsey wasn't the only scientist to identify the risks of thalidomide, she sounded the alarm that kept it off the multi-billion-dollar American drug market. As public awareness of the thalidomide tragedy grew, the quiet scientist became a media sensation. Headlines in newspapers and magazines heralded her heroism, while a smiling President John F. Kennedy presented her an award on the White House lawn. After the thalidomide scare, Congress passed laws that expanded the FDA's authority and toughened requirements for new drug applications. Kelsey was tapped to head the agency's drug investigation branch. Working at the FDA in different capacities into her 90s, Kelsey was able to witness the changes her actions helped inspire. Her visibility may have dimmed since, but her legacy endures. Privileging facts over opinions and patience over shortcuts, she made evidence-based medicine the foundation of reforms that continue to protect people today.
Hope you guys are inspired by one amazing scientist who stood up against Big Pharma and prevented even a further tragedy. Let me tell you about other issues. Willowbrook School for Mentally Retarded Children. They infected these kids with hepatitis. They told them that it would be a vaccine. They told them it would be a vaccine, but they knew that they were purposely giving these mentally retarded children hepatitis. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? This actually happened here in the United States of America. So there were responses to these research abuses, right? It's atrocious. It's disgusting. We have to act up. We have to speak up. Laws need to be passed. We have to outline ethical principles for medical research to prevent these issues from ever happening ever again. Are you guys with me? So they passed a law and they proposed a commission to come up with a structure, a framework in which the future, if this ever came, we could take a look and use these ethical principles to guide us. And what were these three ethical principles? These basic ethical principles? Respect for persons, informed consent, that individuals should be treated as autonomous agents in control of whether or not they want a medical treatment, with special protection for those with diminished levels of autonomy, like poor little children who don't get to decide if they're wearing masks or if they get a vaccine. They get special protection. And these ethical principles reinforce that we should be providing for acts of charity, mercy, and kindness. So when I see posts from doctors saying that they're losing compassion for people who refuse to get vaccines, I ask, where is your beneficence? And where is your justice? Because you cannot harm a child. You cannot put a mask on a child and prevent them from breathing and get mouth breathing to benefit somebody else. You cannot put the burden on one person so that somebody else benefits. These are against basic ethical principles that were developed in response to the disgusting, horrifying research that you've just seen. And so moving forward, I would argue that we should abide by these principles. But Dr. Zaghi, that was the 1960s and 1970s. Since that law was passed, this never happened, right? Wrong. 2018, okay? There was an ambulance that went around. The ambulance in Minnesota, paramedics would pick you up, and if you were agitated, they would inject you with ketamine. And once you were injected, they would do research on you. They ran research studies on these people. This was 3 years ago, guys. This was July 25, 2018. There are ambulances going around injecting people with ketamine to do research studies on them without informed consent. But Dr. Zaghi, that's just one example of an ethical concern. No, there's research of 280 cases of ethical violations in medicine in the last 8 years alone. All right? So that I hope that puts things in perspectives a little bit. And so I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to go to 7:30, okay? I can't finish by 7 o'clock. I really tried, but I have so much to give you, all right? Well, if you guys are willing to hang out with me to 7:30, I'd like to respect your time, but I hope you're enjoying this, okay? Research depends on ethics, honesty, and integrity. Ethics means justice, respect for persons, and autonomy. Get Byron up, please. Honesty, truthfulness, distinguishing between fact, opinion, and fallacy, which we'll do in the next little bit, and integrity. That means a critical awareness of your implicit bias. All right. What I'd like to do at this moment is invite Byron, who is a member of the community in Wisconsin, to just say a minute or two of his thoughts on these topics and what I've presented so far, and if this is important in any regard to him. Please invite him. Yes, can you press *6, they're saying? Press *6, and please come on the line. If not, I'll go and then when he comes. Are you there? Should I keep going? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to continue on, and when Byron's ready, just chime in and we'll get you in, Byron, okay? Ethics, justice, respect for persons, autonomy, beneficence, justice, honesty, integrity, right? All right. So let's take a closer look and let's discuss what is scientific research. What is it? Scientific research is systematic investigation of observations in order to establish facts, so that we may all reach new conclusions. Observation, what you see, is the basis of research. Questions are the basis of research. But the problem is that what you see alone is not always very reliable. Okay? And I've shown this to others in the past, but here is a little optical illusion called the Munker-White illusion. You take a look at column A and you took a look at column B, and you ask, which one is darker? Which one looks darker? Simple question. And so you might be inclined to say, hey, column A looks darker than column B. But really, it all depends on the context. And if you put them side by side, you see that column A is the exact same color as color B. Your eyes are playing a trick on you, because people, all people, me, you, all 150 of us in here, we're naturally programmed, we're naturally inclined to interpret observations according to our existing beliefs. This is how we work. If our grandparents taught us to believe that the medical system is not trustworthy, then all I will see is the data that proves that they're not trustworthy. And this is a form of confirmation bias. Confirmation bias means that each and every one of us here in the audience has the tendency to look for information that's going to support your belief, your emotion inside. You're going to block out all the things that doesn't agree with your perspective, and you're going to be open to everything that agrees and resonates with you. Okay? Confirmation bias is when you go out and you only pick one side. It's when you're not seeking out objective facts. It's when you interpret whatever's out there to only support your belief. It's only remembering details that support your belief and ignoring everything else that challenges those inherent beliefs. But that doesn't apply to you guys, does it? You guys don't have confirmation bias, do you? So then this is the slide that I show. This is a slide of tongue bifurcation surgery. There are people out there who decide that they want to have their tongue split in half. Okay? So when you're talking about the opposing views on the vaccine or the mask or whatever else it is, think to yourself in this context, okay? Think to yourself about what is your reaction? And if we put a poll, most people here would say this is disgusting. It should be banned. It should be forbidden. Shame on them. They're crazy. But this is all initial reactions, right? This is all confirmation bias. You don't know anything about this procedure. We need to slow down. We need to pause on our emotions, okay? We have to recognize our emotions and then pause and be a little bit slower and more deliberate and reflective and listen and then think. And I'm going to teach you guys how the critical thinking process works as well. Because we are naturally inclined to have bias. People like certain things and they dislike other things, okay? And you acquire this in your upbringing and you're never going to get rid of it, okay? It is impossible to be unbiased. It's impossible. Everyone has some degree of bias. We're designed to make judgments based on first impressions. We've learned these things in school and religion and family and media. But what we can learn to do is to reflect critically on these judgments and to be aware of our blind spots so that we can prevent ourselves on acting on these implicit biases and harmful prejudices that we've learned from our upbringing. And to overcome bias, we have to recognize there's a variety of different kinds of bias. We talked about confirmation bias, and now we'll talk about publication bias. For those of you guys in the airway space, you've seen that we've published on tongue tie, but we've had a very difficult time publishing on lip tie. This is not because we didn't do the research, and this is not because people aren't asking the questions. There are folks out there asking, hey, is there any research on these topics of lip tie and whether or not it can close the diastema? And I can ask you guys, and you guys would know that, hey, I've seen this happen, on occasion. And we've done the study with Dr. Richard Baxter where they took 100 kids, they took a picture of the diastema, snipped the frenum, and then took another picture 6 months to a year later, and they saw that it closed. It was a perfect study. But what do the reviewers say? The reviewers say that your paper is well done. The technique is clean. Your evidence is irrefutable. But this topic is controversial. Okay? We are overdoing these procedures, and these procedures is creating a lot of noise. I cannot accept this article. And this is an example of publication bias. Publication bias is when the editor, journal, or other media chooses to publish this or not, depending on the outcome or conclusion of the study. Okay? So it's like a journal only publishing the studies that say vaccines and masks are great and not reporting the ones that say it's not. That's an example of publication bias. It's an example of YouTube allowing any talk that says get vaccinated, do this, vote this way, but not allowing the other side. And another word for publication bias is censorship. And censorship, I ask you, does censorship engender trust or mistrust? Okay? Because it's all about maintaining perspective. You have to see it from both ways, okay? And that's how we can overcome our biases. And that's how we can create a space for discussion. And that's how we do clinical research, which is unbiased, systematic investigation in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. We're looking for facts, not opinions, when it comes to science. So what is a fact? And we're going to practice this a little bit here. A fact is something that actually exists. It's truth. It's irrefutable. A fact is irrefutable. There's nothing that you can say that would make it not true. That is a fact. What is an opinion? An opinion is something that you believe. It's okay. All opinions are welcome. All opinions are valid, but they're not facts. And so it's totally fine to say a statement, a fact, and it's totally fine to say a statement of opinion, but it's not fine when you take an opinion and you present that as a matter of fact. When you take an opinion and you're forcing it as a fact, that lacks ethics, that lacks integrity, that lacks honesty, and that is a fallacy. And I couldn't think of any better slide than by this one by Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions, the courage to be here, and the courage to express what you really want. Communicate with others clearly. Avoid misunderstanding, sadness, and drama. Don't take anything personally. Always do your best. This is how we must approach research. This is how we must approach research if it's the truth that we're looking for. But what I see in the media and from scientists and our leaders is a lot of confusion. All right? And the way forward, I would suggest, is by taking a minute for us all to learn a little bit about critical reading and about critical thinking. And so what we want to do is to talk about separating facts from opinions. Okay? And it's a silly exercise that we'll do, and then we'll look at some things related to COVID. Yeah, okay. Let's take a moment before we do this, okay, since Byron is on. Byron, why don't you come on and let's listen to your thoughts and perspectives.
Well, my thoughts are I'm scared to death of the shot because there's no research done on it enough for me to take it. And I don't want to be a lab rat, basically.
Thank you for sharing that. What were your thoughts in what I presented? Did that resonate at all with you? Did that make sense to you? Was it welcome by you?
Oh, absolutely. I was listening to your conversation on the van, so I was very intrigued by it. I wanted to learn more and hear more. I actually have my daughter behind as well, listening.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for allowing us to listen to your voice and your perspective.
Absolutely.
Good. So going back to this discussion on facts or opinions, okay? Let's start, right. A fact is something that can be proved true through objective evidence, okay? You need to have physical proof, all right? For example, so-and-so tower is the tallest building in the city. You could go out, check, and if it's true, then that's a fact. That's the tallest building in the city, okay? By contrast, and here's another example. Albert Einstein gave his violin to his grandson. It's a fact. You can't argue with it. It's 100% true, okay? You can go and look in books and estates and receipts and prove that that's true. That's a fact, okay? An opinion is a belief. It's a judgment that cannot be proven true. It's open to question. The building is the ugliest in the city. That's an opinion because there's no way to prove the statement. There's no way to prove the statement. Two people can look at it and come to very different conclusions, because this is about values, right? And values express an opinion, not a fact. Here's another opinion. Einstein should. Anything should is an opinion, okay? How can you prove that he should? Why should he? It's an opinion, right? Opinions versus facts, all right? Facts can be proven untrue. Opinions cannot be proven untrue. Opinions reflect somebody's values. Somebody's values are always inherently true to them. Only they can tell you. Values are subjective, not objective, okay? You can't refute this. Should, ought to. These are words that signal opinions, okay? So let's take a look at this. Which statement is a fact? Which is an opinion? Last night, a tree outside our house was struck by lightning. Let's be on the same page because we're going to do some COVID things, okay? I just want to warm you guys up. And when you're warmed up, then we'll go to the COVID things. Sound good? All right? So A is a fact, okay? The raiders were rude. It would cost more than it was worth. Opinion. All right, fair. We're all together? All right? There is nothing like a bottle of Coca-Cola to satisfy thirst. All right? Opinion. In the late 1890s, when Coke was first sold, it included a small amount of cocaine, which was then legal. Fact. Okay? Coca-Cola is a delicious soft drink. Okay? And it was first intended to cure various ills, including headaches. So now that gets tricky because they do fact and opinion in the same sentence. That's how they confuse you. They put a fact and an opinion, and then now you're all confused. Is it a fact or opinion? It's both. One of the most delicious of soft drinks is an opinion, but Coca-Cola was intended. That could be a fact. All right? So now that we refute that, okay? All right, now this one we're going to go a little more slowly, okay? Bear with me, okay? Is this a fact or opinion? We need to get more people vaccinated immediately if we want to end this pandemic. Is this a fact or an opinion? Okay? Should I wait a second? Fantastic. We should do more research before recommending or mandating the vaccine. Is that a fact or an opinion? Okay? Both opinions. Opinion, opinion, opinion. Okay? They're not facts. They're just opinions. All right. Opinions are best when they are based on facts. Okay? 32.9% of the world population, third of the planet, has received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Okay? A third of the planet. 5 billion doses have been administered. Okay? These are both, what do you guys think? Are these facts or opinions? The first two statements. Are you guys with me? These are facts, according to this article? Facts. Okay? They injected, they did it, done. Okay, it's proven. You can't argue with it. It's a fact. All right. A lot of people have gotten the vaccine. A lot of people. That's an opinion. That's an opinion. Who's to say what's a lot, what's a little? Who's to say? That's an opinion. But this is an opinion that is based on a pretty reasonable fact, okay? 5 billion people is a lot of people, all right? 5 billion is a lot of doses. It's a lot. Maybe you say a lot is 10 billion, all right? Matter of opinion. Are you guys with me? The vaccine had an acceptable safety profile. Is that a fact or an opinion? The vaccine had an acceptable, it was acceptable. Who was it acceptable to? Was it acceptable to the scientists? Or was it acceptable to Byron? Our community. This is an opinion, okay? There is not enough data. There's not enough, or there is enough. Is that a fact or opinion? That's an opinion, all right? So then it gets tricky because in the research papers, they throw in facts with opinions. And when you throw in the facts with the opinions and you're not clear what's a fact and what's an opinion, that's when you engender mistrust. Does that make sense? Okay, here we go. The new mRNA vaccine had an acceptable safety profile in adolescents, peer-reviewed New England Journal of Medicine. It was acceptable. Is that a fact or an opinion? That it was acceptable. That's an opinion, okay? The fact is that that is the opinion of the authors, okay? So you see now how we're tricking you, right? The authors suggest, the authors say that it was acceptable. That's a fact. The authors said that. The authors said that this was acceptable, okay? That's true. In this study, the most common side effects were this and that. Those are facts, okay? They studied it and they said, in this study, these were the most common side effects. But look at it. Headache, fatigue, right? I mean, 90% of people are having pain. 40 to 70% are having headaches and fatigue. Wow. That's, I don't know, my opinion, your opinion. Is that a lot? Is that a little? That would be opinion. Does that make sense? Are you guys with me? Okay. But then they say no serious adverse events. What defines serious? Okay. Right? You guys with me? You guys see how the studies are framed in a way that's maybe a little politically biased towards one versus the other? A little bit of, okay? So how about this statement? According to the authors of the study, according to them, the most common side effects were pain, headache, and fatigue. Is that a fact or an opinion? Is that a fact or an opinion? Fact, okay? Fact. All right. And we look at the figure that they provided here, okay? No serious adverse events noted, all right? Okay? If I were to say there were no serious adverse effects, is that a fact or an opinion? That's an opinion. But if I say there were no serious adverse effects noted, that means that they didn't note it. That's a fact. They didn't note it. They didn't record it. Okay? You guys with me so far? All right? Back to this slide. The slide shows that if you don't get the vaccine, you're an adolescent, the chances of being a carrier or infected is about 2.5%. That means that 97.5% were fine, right? 2.5% chance of getting it. Versus if you got the vaccine, then it's 0.5. So it's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful. But if you don't, vast majority of people are okay, all right? It brings you down from 2.5 to 0.5, all right? Now, in all fairness, there's something called the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, okay? And I would say that serious adverse effect is death, all right? Would you agree? That's serious? Okay? I think that's pretty serious, okay? So, whereas this study was done prospectively and they measured it and they tried to be as controlled as they can, in this study, what they did is people could just go and report if something happened after they got the vaccine. And it's pretty surprising, all right? This study shows, and it's pretty terrifying, okay? I mean, 5 billion doses were given, okay? 5 billion doses. So you're talking like 0.0001%. But if you're going to do informed consent, all right, if you're going to have ethics and integrity and be truthful, then, hey, there are people, 1,500 people, 2,000 people, who died within a couple days after receiving the vaccine, okay? And they reported this after the fact, all right? Well, that's kind of concerning, okay? Like, oh my God, right? But we got to look at the study design, okay? The New England Journal article was prospective. They sat there, they went, they did a study, they followed it carefully over time, or so we believe. The other study is done retrospective. Something bad happens, and then you go and you report it. One study is subjective, The other is objective. They're trying to measure it. One study is a case series. The other is randomized control. In that regard, the randomized control, good measurements are higher levels of evidence. And we are taught that when we have two studies that are like in conflict, right? Just like we have here, that the higher level of evidence is the better option to rely on, because the lower levels of evidence are more subject to bias. And bias means that you take a look at this and you're not sure what's what. Did they pass away from COVID, or did they pass away from something else? Did they pass away from the COVID vaccine, or did they pass away from something else? You'll never know. And when you never know, that introduces doubt, and doubt becomes more opinion than it becomes fact. All right? So I hope that you enjoyed this little introduction to research. All right? When we do research, we have to go through institutional review board training, right? Clinical ethical training, HIPAA training. I hope I have made your HIPAA training and ethics training fun. All right? I hope I've shown you a little bit about selection bias and different kinds of bias that can go into it. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make a mistake. All right? But it's not okay to keep repeating the same mistakes. We have to learn from our mistakes. We have to continually ask questions and learn from them using the scientific method of investigation. And so I'll conclude with fact or opinion. We should not trust the researchers because they're not ethical. They didn't report all the facts. We should trust the researchers because these are both opinions, okay? But the fact is that there are some people who do not trust the scientists and researchers. They exist, all right? And maybe they're not so crazy. Basic ethic principles for the practice of medicine and research include respect for persons, beneficence, and justice, fact or opinion. There are laws that provide special protection for those with diminished levels of autonomy, fact or opinion. Those are facts. That we should follow these principles is an opinion, but I would suggest that it's an opinion based on facts. Fact or opinion. Vaccine mandate is the way to provide special protection, right? Maybe that's how we protect people with diminished levels of autonomy. Or vaccine mandate is not the way. These are opinions. These are not facts. Okay? What I hope I've done here in the last hour is to help you guys learn, grow, and deeply understand by allowing space for conversation, differentiating between facts, opinions, and fallacies, showing both sides of this controversy, encouraging you to respect your own beliefs, helping you become more open to honoring different views, and encouraging you to think critically and with compassion. And if nothing else, I hope you leave learning the basic ethical principles of research and medical practice are respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. And let me read these excerpts from the Hippocratic Oath that say that I swear to fulfill, to the best of my ability and judgment, that I will remember that there is art to medicine as well as science. If I'm going to convince someone to get the vaccine or to get help, there's art to that. I have to use warmth. I have to use sympathy. I have to use understanding, because these tools outweigh force. I'm not ashamed to say, I don't know. I don't know all the research. I don't know if it's safe or not. I don't know what you should do. But I do know that I trust you, and I'm here to provide you with the opportunity for informed consent and in a safe place where we can talk about our feelings and emotions and come to a decision together. Because I remember that I'm not treating a paper or a chart. I'm treating people. and people's illnesses can affect their family, their economic stability. And I'm here to prevent disease whenever I can, but first do no harm. Prevention is preferable to cure, but I don't have all the answers. And I will remember that I remain a member of society with special obligations to all of my fellow human beings, but especially those who are sound of mind and body, as well as the infirm. And so I've spoken my bit, and now we want you to help us. So we're going to open the forum for a couple of our colleagues to share their comments and thoughts in terms of what I shared. And the goal in any comment that you might make is to honor diversity of thoughts, to distinguish between facts and opinions, to identify our own biases. And if you'd like to make a comment about what you learned or appreciated in the chat box, that would be meaningful to me. I'm here to help you guys. This was something that was not easy for me to put together. This was not easy. This is not an easy discussion for me to have. It's not something that I sought out to do. It's something that pulled me. And I thank you guys for honoring me with your time and by listening to me. And in turn, I'm here to listen to you.
We see there's some commentary, and we want to welcome that, because this isn't a one-sided conversation, folks. And I hope you appreciate that, what Dr. Zaghi, because he made us go through this exercise while Byron was driving us, okay? And he was trying to get even me and Chad to figure out, is this fact, opinion, or fallacy? And that's what Dr. Zaghi is trying to do here. He's trying to get all of us equipped with the right terminology and to frame the conversation in a way where we know, are we coming from a place of fact or opinion? So Linda, I appreciate you sharing that. We're not saying there's any experts here. Just because Dr. Zaghi's wearing scrubs with the ENT sleep surgeon, we're grateful for the fact that he's opening this dialogue and celebrating both sides and not ostracizing. So
first, Dr. Zaghi, thank you so much. You're always a wealth of information. And I think even more than that, you're creating this incredible space, a space of critical thinking, a space of compassion. You're really pushing all of us, I think, regardless of our bias and where we come from, our training, our backgrounds, to really consider both sides and look at all the science. And so I want to thank you for all your opinions. I want to thank Howie and the AAPMD for all being here to contribute, and Byron and whomever's coming after me to speak and share. I think in the society that we're living in, it can be really tough to have some of these conversations because there's not a majority consensus. There's a lot of times where this has become a space of discomfort. So Dr. Zaghi, thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone to be in this space, and all of you that are here tonight to help create a space where we can continue a conversation. Because I am a firm believer that in the space of discomfort is where we have room for growth. And I want to be really transparent and say it is not in my scope of practice as a speech and language pathologist to make any type of medical recommendations on vaccines one way or another, on whether or not people should wear masks. Those are things they need to do in conjunction with their own medical providers. So I am only here to share my opinions. None of these are approved by the FDA. Okay, but I am a big proponent that there are a lot of avenues to optimal health and wellness, and that when we're respecting and honoring the autonomy and the individuality of this complex mind-body system that we all have, that my path to optimal health and wellness may look really different from the path of a 9-year-old or a 90-year-old or someone else with different comorbidities. And I think having a space where we can honor science in this way, Dr. Zaghi, I mean, you spoke beautifully towards the basic ethical principles that we have, to implicit bias, which is part of our brain's job in keeping us alive, right? It's It's activating that amygdala so that all of this information that comes at us every day in just a matter of milliseconds, we can parse out what we need to pay attention to survive and what we need to, maybe we can let go of. In what I do as a clinician, I come a lot from the standpoint, especially with kids with airway function disorders, is looking at the amount of them that are in what I call limbic lockdown, right? They're in that increased sympathetic nervous system state. And that has been a place for most people in our society here and around the world for the last year and a half. And that is, everyone has fears that are putting them there for various reasons and to different degrees, whether it's the fear of losing their life or becoming ill, whether it's their fear of having long haul symptoms, or their fear of not putting a roof over their head, or food on the table, or losing a loved one, or a job. Those are all valid fears, just like opinions. And I think when we recognize that space for implicit bias and that we all possess it, I certainly have my own, but we do things in health and wellness to also get our brains from our limbic system to that place where we step into the prefrontal cortex. Because that's the space in our brains, that's our neurobiology. That's what keeps us alive. We, of course, if there's a lion chasing us, we've got to run away from it. We're not going to have this huge expansive view. Our attention is only, it's a myopic view, and our attention is very hyper-focused on that moment of survival. So that's where the space that people are coming from. This is a space where people interpret research from, and the application of it, and their definition of words. And words matter, Dr. Zaghi, as you were saying. Is it safe? Is it effective? My definition of those words may be different than the researchers or my neighbor or someone in my profession. And all of those things are okay, but I think we need to have the same vocabulary and the same context from which to come. And I think when we get into that space of that prefrontal cortex, we have the ability to pay attention, which means that when all of this data is thrown at us every day and it's changing and it's confusing for everyone, that we have the attention to look big, to not be stuck in this myopic lens and to say, I'm going to look at both sides. I'm going to look at all of it. I'm going to keep myself in this calm and compassionate space so that I can problem solve optimally right here in my prefrontal cortex, not making knee-jerk reactions out of my limbic system, and to critically think.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nicole.
For having me.
So much. I want to give a chance to Michael Steinberg to come on. You're saying some very, very important messages in the chat box, and I want you to share your perspective with the audience. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, good evening. Thank you. It's a very good presentation, and it really makes us think a lot about what's going on here, and some things are not as they seem. But if I see statistics that say populations and states where vaccinations are disencouraged and where people are getting vaccines in secret so their friends don't know about it, and where people are just not getting the vaccination, and that's where the healthcare systems and the healthcare heroes like my wife are being overwhelmed, and there are no spaces where they're not getting vaccines. Isn't that enough of an educated opinion to mandate people to get these vaccines and to not spread it to everybody else?
Beautiful.
And not to exhaust the people who are providing the care and running out of gas very fast.
I want to thank you for sharing your perspective, and thank you for coming on and sharing the statistics and making an argument for vaccination and for vaccine mandates. And I listen, and I really appreciate your bravery to come on and to make a statement. And I genuinely thank you and congratulate you for that. So there's some audience questions, okay? And somebody asked me, based on the facts presented in the research, what does Dr. Zaghi think? Is the vaccine safer than remaining unvaccinated, okay? So if you're asking for me, I chose to get vaccinated. I'm really feel grateful for the opportunity. I think for me, the risks, the benefits greatly outweigh the potential risks. I'm happy that I got it. If I have to get a third dose, I would happily do it. I have friends who don't want to, and I honor them. I put my arm around them, and I'm there for them, and I see where they're coming from, and I love them. Okay. And so that's where we need to be. Okay. So I feel lucky for the opportunity. If my patients ask me, I put the research out before them. I let them know very clearly that it substantially reduces their risks. But even if they don't do anything, they themselves have an overwhelming chance of being okay. But we as a population depend on each other, and we need each other to kind of cooperate to make this go away. But cooperation doesn't come by force. It comes by willingly stepping up and saying, all right, I don't want to take the vaccine, but I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to social distance. I'm going to help my immune system. I'm going to keep myself healthy. Whatever it is that you can do to cooperate, that's wonderful, but nobody should be forced to do anything. That's my opinion.
I think that's a great opportunity, as I know we're approaching time, to share. Actually, it was something that Chad had found that was talking about, and we have many millennials on the line with us now, but there was a research study, we should be citing it better now, Dr. Z. I wasn't prepared for this, but that was citing that about a third of millennials, what was the Chad? Could you share that?
Sure. It was just an interesting, actually a poll. So it wasn't a peer-reviewed study or anything, but it was an interesting poll that asked people of the millennial ilk if they had lost or given up or seen relationships, friendships, families break down in their experience because of this whole debate. And up to 43% of them said, yes, I've lost friends and I have lost family, but not due to COVID, but due to the COVID argument. And I think that's a pretty important thing, how divisive this has become in our society and how critical it is for us to be capable of respecting one another's opinions and supporting the importance of having these opinions. There's nothing more American than to stand up and say, I am willing to die for your right to disagree with me. And I think that's like one of the most core principles to us as a country. And the day that we stop doing that, the day that we trade the virtues of the virtuous for the voices of the vociferous, is the day that our society begins to collapse. And I just hope that these conversations can continue, because this is just so beautiful to see this
especially around an event like AAPMD and collaboration cures. Collaboration does not happen in silos. We don't need more division in the world. We need more unity. And unity is okay if we disagree with one another. It's a beautiful thing. This is how forums were created. This is how mock trials and debates were created. And that's something, as someone who came here as an immigrant, that was my favorite thing in elementary school and junior high, is when they challenged us to talk about the pro and the con side of something. I'll always remember those types of schoolwork and challenges, because it helped us think in from both sides. And we hope that you appreciate. I know, Dr. Zaghi, you stepped out of your comfort zone. I hope you can see all the commentary from the folks who really appreciated that. I know this was not a comfortable conversation for a lot of people. There were a few people that dropped off. And I think that, that was based off assumptions, because throughout the meeting, you didn't know whether Dr. Zaghi was vaccinated or not. And that wasn't the point. It's about his personal choice and him respecting the choice of all of us here at the Breathe Institute. And I think the message that we want to leave it with, it's about healthy immunity. And why do we come to these conferences like AAPMD? Why does Howie at 80, he turned 80 this year, why at 80 years old is he so passionate about bringing speakers from all different walks of life, all different professions under one roof to share their expertise, so that you can walk away with options, alternatives, not only for your patients, but for personal choices. So we so hope you appreciated this. And we really want nothing more but to continue to build community, continue to build dialogue. And Nicole, this one's for you, continue to build compassion. So Howie, how did we do? Are we good? Are you happy? And all of you in the chat box, let us know what you think, and we'll bring Dr. Zaghi and Howie, and we'll finish it with this. Please make sure to join us for Sunday Fun Day at the Outlook if you want more of this, folks. Okay. All right, Howie and Dr. Z, back to you.
I'm glad you're back, because this was fantastic. Because one thing that the vaccinated and the unvaccinated have in common is fear. And even if we believe or you don't believe what Dr. Steinberg said, mandating and forcing people to get the vaccine isn't changing anybody's mind. It's making them dig in their heels and be more resistant. And the only way that things are going to change is by having an open dialogue. And my belief is at the same time we're dealing with the vaccine, we have to learn to be healthier. 40% of the people who have died from COVID, and it's a fact, are people with metabolic disease, with diabetes, which is a preventable disease. And I believe COVID is a wake-up call that we need to learn to be healthier and prevent the preventable diseases. And I know how difficult this was, and I could feel the passion of coming through my screen, little flames of passion coming out. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this. And before we started, Drew said we have to get this up on YouTube. I think that it's great. We had so many people on. We had over 200 people on this webinar tonight, but this needs to be seen by thousands of people, and we're going to try to make that happen. So thank you so much for doing this. And it's okay that you changed the theme of the webinar.
And thank you to all of you for your incredible comments. I am so honored to have you guys listen to us for an hour and a half. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you guys going away with a bigger understanding of what is science, what are the ethical principles behind it, how can we have better communications based on facts and respecting other people's opinions. And we look forward to continuing on with the Breathe Outlook, where we're going to continue teaching principles of research as we implement it moving forward. So we hope you guys will join us. Please let us know your learning needs. At the Breathe Outlook, we will be talking more about statistics, more about p-values, confidence intervals, how to interpret the research, the statistics, the nitty-gritty. So we've decided to make it a free add-on for the AAPMD. There's no additional charge to participate in that. We really want to get everyone exposed to research tools. And so the bulk of that session will be on numbers and math and confidence intervals and statistics. And I'm going to do my very best to make it exciting and engaging for you guys so that we can build as a community. Okay. Thank you guys all so much. All my love to you. Please keep your comments coming. Your messages on Facebook is what we need. These things take a lot of work. Probably spent like 40, 50 hours on this presentation, along with Laylee and Chad and others, and discussions and thoughts. And it's really all consuming to put just a 1 hour lecture together. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you guys at Collaboration Cures.
This is one of the hardest webinars to push the good night button and turn everybody off. But
you got to keep the message. I want to read the messages. You guys can you copy it, or can you keep it up for a little bit? Download it. Okay, I'm going to read all the comments. Thank you guys all so much.
And we have all the comments
saved
in summary.
Fantastic.
Saved, so we can
Fantastic.
leave a late night reading for you to.
Right. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought.
Thank you all very much, and good night, everybody. Thank you all for attending.